Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can start making better environments straight away. So these are things you can do that you can implement right away after watching this, and they're all quite simple and easy things that are not hard to do in Blender. So the first one is I just want to talk about adding a level of detail to the entire render with fairly easy methods. So one of my favorite ways to do this is actually adding a level of detail to the immediate foreground. And what happens when you do that is that it kind of makes it feel like even stuff in the distance that you can't quite see, it makes it feel like it has that level of detail, just because what you're seeing up close, you would assume that the whole rest of the environment has that level of detail, even if it doesn't actually. So for example, in this one, I've scattered stuff in the immediate foreground. I've placed all these tiles around here. I'm placing photo scans. You can see the camera right here. Placing like highly, not that highly detailed, but like relatively detailed photo scans of like tree roots and stuff. All that stuff is coming together to create a good level of detail in the immediate foreground, which kind of creates the illusion that everything else is that detailed as well. So here's some of my favorite ways to add a level of detail to this area, and I'll show you some other ways too, but the first thing is adding tiles. So I'll just actually create this from scratch so you can see how to do this. It's very simple. So in the next section, I'm going to show how to add these tiles to the foreground. I just want to point out that this doesn't just apply to tiles here. The reason I'm including this in detail is because it's such a good example of using something that's so simple. It's just, squares on the floor to add detail. But just remember, you can replace tiles with literally any kind of model at all that makes sense for the environment. I think it's just a good example of how something very simple can add a lot of detail and make the render better. So one of my favorite ways is just put the cursor down in some random spot, just to kind of, I'll just do it in an empty zone here. And I'll just add like a cube to start off, scale it down a bit, throw on like a bevel modifier, bevel. And then I'll just use an array modifier to just make a big grid of this. So I'll just, do a 10 by 10. So we can just do that and then just duplicate the array, do it this way too. And now we just got like this grid of tiles here. What I will do now is just apply all modifiers. So apply all of that. And then I basically want to separate all these to separate objects. The way you could do that is hit P to separate by loose parts. And then I'm just going to right click and just set the origin to geometry. So set that to there. So they've all got an origin point on their original like center of the tile. And then I'll just go up to switch this over to individual origins. So I can just bring that down a little bit. And then we'll just do, a basic randomized transform. So I'll just apply scale first to make sure it's going to do it properly. And we can go to object, transform, and then just randomize transform right here. I'm sure you've used this before, but it's very useful for stuff like this. So just do a slight amount of location, a good amount of rotation, and scale I probably don't need to touch. And then what I'll do here is just kind of click around randomly, just shift clicking around randomly, and then just delete a bunch of these. So we can kind of get like broken tiles. And then if you want, you can go in and like model some little debris piece thing that's like broken off or whatever. I've done that before. You can do it too. It's like optional, but that's another thing you can do. It's very easy to just model little broken little pieces. And that'll kind of complement this really nicely. Once you're happy with this, I'll usually just join it back together and then put like any kind of stone texture will work on this. So, okay. I'll just go to the Polyhaven add-on. You can get all these textures for free from their website. I just have their paid add-on. I'm not like affiliated. I just use this because it's good. So I'll probably just go and search like, stone or something. So yeah, something a bit more basic would probably be better, like this kind of thing. And then if you just kind of layer that on top of a surface like this, that is where you can get just a really easy way to detail this, And you can see what I mean, right? Like that was so simple and easy to do, but looks a lot better than just like a flat surface, And then you can, of course, go and place more objects on top of this and, do whatever. You can double this up if you want and go crazy with it. But the point is like, and this is really easy to actually tile after it as well. So you can see if I just, they're just squares, right? So you can duplicate it as much as you want and not worry about lagging the scene at all. I don't know why I'm going on and on about these tiles, but the point is, just do even a simple little thing like this can work extremely well to just add a level of detail. It's adding variation in height in the foreground to make it look like just something happening. It makes a big difference and it makes everything feel a lot more detailed. Okay, the next method that I usually will use to add a level of detail to the ground specifically is just a floor plane like this with just adaptive subdivision on it. I'm using a 4K texture so that I actually have a decent amount of resolution. So there's kind of like the default scale of that, and then I'll just scale it up by like that much or whatever. So the problem you'll have with this is that after scaling it up on the UV map, you're going to get a tiling repeating pattern. You could use like the Blender Guru, what is it called? That add-on he made to like remove the tiling or whatever. I'm blanking on the name, but you know what I mean. There's some of those tools that are free that you can get that like will remove the tiling and the texture. But what I usually just do is, first of all, usually from the camera's perspective, you might not even notice it. So you might not even have to fix it. To be honest, I usually don't really have a problem with that. If you do have a problem and it is like really bad and you can obviously see it's repeating quite clearly, one thing I'll usually do is just throw in like some water, and this won't fix it straight away. But if you throw like, if you just go onto the texture and mix in some like noise or something into, just take a noise texture and mix that into the displacement. You can probably just leave it on mix 50-50 to be honest. And now you're gonna get random parts sticking up out of the water, and that'll help break up the repeating pattern. And it's a really easy way to add just a ton of detail. And then I'd probably, for the immediate foreground, since that doesn't look so nice, I would probably cover that up with a model or something else, or find a way to hide that, put some plants over it. Anything you can do to just cover up the immediate foreground of like this garbage here, that will be a good idea. But past like a couple feet out, you're not really going to have any problems with that, and you're going to get tons of detail from it. So that's really nice. By the way, for water, like I just added there, you can just go and watch my tutorial on water after this video if you want to see how to do that. But basically, there's the shading set up for the water on a cube, and then you can just save the cube to your asset browser and drop it in like that anytime you want. Oh, I forgot to mention too, just in case it wasn't clear. Again, this is just a regular texture from Polyhaven, free 4K texture you can just get from their website. So just the base color, roughness, normal, and then displacement, standard texture setup with the displacement running out there. If you don't know how to use that, again, just Google Blender Adaptive Subdivision and you'll figure out how to use it. Displacement like this, running out with this adaptive subdivision. It's very easy. It just takes a minute to show how to set it up. Okay, so actually this kind of brings me to my next point here, is that the next way that I'll usually add detail to the foreground or the overall render very easily is just drop in any kind of prop that fits the environment. So one thing I like doing is dropping in photo scans that I've taken literally just on my phone. You just go out and use the app, either Polycam, Metascan. You can use like more advanced ones like Reality Capture if you want to do that, but Polycam and Metascan are extremely easy to use. You literally just download an app on your phone and then go out on like a cloudy day where there's not direct sunlight hitting anything. And I recommend using the photo mode on the app, not the LiDAR mode. I actually got an iPhone to use the LiDAR mode and it doesn't work that well, so photo mode is much better. Anyways, what that does is you can get stuff like this. So I just went around in the forest nearby and just did a photo scan on my phone of some tree roots like this, just some stumps and stuff. And this is totally perfect I've used the same exact model in so many different renders, and it's such a nice way to add detail because one, it's a real object, so it kind of enhances the real feeling of the image. But number two is that it's kind of like you know where this object is in real life, and you know it's an actual thing that you've seen with your own eyes, and it's kind of cool to put that into your own render sometimes. So it just adds kind of like a nice personal touch as well. Anyways, throwing in stuff like this can really, in a harsh lighting situation like this, it doesn't look fantastic, but looks good enough for this demonstration that I'll put it in here. But basically, these are super easy to use. You just kind of let it intersect with the ground however you want, and it's just a really nice way to add just extremely easy detail to the render and just make it better overall. So you can do this with rocks, you can do it with tree roots, you can do it with anything that's kind of like a rough, diffuse surface. You can do it with that, and as long as it's not like a glass object or something, it'll be pretty easy to photo scan. And you can see it's just such an easy way to make things better, So my point here is not to just use photo scans only, but if you want to go out and get your own photo scan, that's great. If you want to download models, that's great. If you want to spend a couple of days or an hour or whatever, 5 minutes, modeling something that you can just use in another render, whether you want to just add cubes and just be extremely lazy and just literally do it with cubes like I have done before in my renders. You could do it that way too, and just literally any kind of prop that sort of seems like it belongs in the environment is going to be something good to add in here. And it's, rather than just leaving this as like a flat texture with nothing there, you know, doing this just makes it, again, feel like the whole rest of the render looks this detailed if there's a detailed amount of stuff up close, you know. You can see even with cubes, if you just put a texture on this, it doesn't even look that bad. So you can really put anything in here, any kind of object that relates to whatever your environment is, that's going to work very well. So here I've also gone in and placed some roots, and then I've just deleted the tiles where the root is in the way, or kind of manually place them on top of it, like leaning on it or whatever. I scattered some plants in between the tiles by just kind of duplicating the side pieces of that and then scattering it on that. And then I have another texture underneath there that's also a little bit detailed. So, and yeah, that level of detail there just kind of makes everything feel like it has that much detail overall in the entire scene, which is a really nice effect to have. Another thing you can do that is a very easy method to add detail to the entire render is just adding actually trees in here. So I'll just usually spawn in some trees from this add-on Botanic. I think Sweeper is coming out with his tree add-on / scattering add-on now too. So I'm not sure if that's fully out yet or partially out, but and then just throwing in trees are always going to be detailed models. So if you just put those around the scene, it makes everything feel a lot more detailed just by nature of the fact that there's all this complexity in the tree model that you're just putting around. So that's a really nice way to add detail, is just, yeah, spawn in some basic trees and put them around. Another way is to scatter things. So you can see I'm just scattering some flowers. Again, this is just from the add-on Botanic. Again, not affiliated, I just use it because it's good. And yeah, flowers just scattered on something. Just one scatter system, weight painted, just the basic setup that you always see on everything. And that's another really easy way to add detail, is just take something that is like a little plant or flower or something and just scatter that around anywhere. And it makes everything feel a lot more detailed. Of course, some detail is going to come from actually just, you know, spending time modeling something or whatever. But in terms of like quick tricks, those are my go-tos, like detailed foreground with tiles or a texture, scatter stuff, throw trees in, and then, yeah, the modeling can kind of be okay on top of that. Okay, number 2, the thing that you can do to make your renders better straight away is just keep the camera and lighting as simple as possible. So I want to give you a tip right now for finding good, simple camera angles, first of all, and then we'll talk about lighting after. So something I did in this one was I had a camera angle and I wasn't quite sure about it. What I went and did, which is a trick that I do actually kind of often, is take the camera. So we're looking this way. I'll duplicate it so that it's I have a backup copy in case I mess this up really badly. I'll hit Control 0 on the numpad. So Control 0 will snap that new duplicated camera. That will make it the active camera, and that means it'll render from this camera. If you want to switch it back to the old one, it's again Control 0 to go back. And then what you can do is just hit, I believe the shortcut is Shift and then the, it's like the semicolon key. So Shift, I guess the colon key, that one, it will put you into walk/fly mode. So I've actually changed the shortcut to Shift F, which is what it used to be in an older version of Blender. But if you don't know which one it is for you, just go into Edit, Preferences, and then go to Key Map, and then just search for Fly. And then this will tell you which one it is for you. So for me, it's Shift F. For you, it might be different. So anyways, press that. That will basically put you into first person view in Blender, and then it's just video game control. So WASD to move, mouse to look around. And by default, you're not going to have any gravity. What I actually like to do is in this mode, first of all, I'm going to go into rendered view, and that will let me kind of see the lighting. Even if it's super laggy, you can kind of still do this. If it's too laggy for you, you might just have to do it in solid view, but that's fine. And then what I'll usually do is hit G, which will actually disable gravity as soon as I press G. And now we're basically walking around inside of the environment as if we're in a video game, right? So that's kind of actually really, first of all, fun thing to do if you just kind of want to walk around your render. But on top of that, it means that you can just walk around and start looking at this as if you're basically holding a camera first person. And then you can go in, adjust the focal length or whatever, come back, Shift F, G to disable gravity, and you'll kind of just follow any geometry that's in the scene. You can use the mouse wheel to scroll up and down and adjust the speed at which you're walking. And it's just a really nice way to kind of simulate as if you were actually there in real life, and like find a cool angle to take a picture of this weird thing from. So you can see it lets you find different angles that you wouldn't normally find by just moving the Blender camera around normally with the normal controls. And also, if you do this in Eevee, it's going to be a lot smoother as well. So it's another way you can do it. It's a little bit hard to see sometimes, but definitely is going to be faster than with Cycles. It's also just fun to just jump around the scene. But yeah, you can see it's really cool to just go into in Eevee as well, because it's going to feel a lot more like a video game because it's actually going to be in real time. But yeah, it's fun. So what I'm usually looking for in a camera angle is I want it to feel like as if you were exploring this place, like walking around it by yourself, holding a camera, or maybe you had a drone or something. You could get some, like an aerial shot more like this. This one's actually kind of in the roof, so I thought it made more sense if you're climbing on the roof looking down. So it's another, if you think about like where a person could possibly end up looking from, it's a good way to start with your camera angles. So it doesn't always have to be ground level, although that is something I like to do a lot, but just any place where theoretically a person could either climb to or stand on, that's usually what I'll try and go for. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? We're at 24 millimeters on this one, kind of on the roof, looking down at this angle. The composition isn't that insane. We've kind of got this spiral thing coming down with the staircases, kind of leading you down towards the middle, and that's kind of helping with the composition. But even if that wasn't there, it's like, it's basically just pointing the camera at the thing, and that's the render. There are these big chains and stuff kind of helping you kind of lead your eye towards the center a little bit. There's kind of, it's framed a little bit by these pieces of the environment that are like rings around converging on the center. Definitely the light is shining in the middle, so there's all these little things that are coming together to kind of help get your attention towards the middle and the main thing. But in terms of the actual camera angle, it's very simple. It's just point at the thing and shoot. Same thing with the lighting as well. So if we just look at how this is being lit, I believe it's just one spotlight. If I just turn this on and off, let's just see. Yep, it is one single spotlight, and I think a couple of very light ambient lights. So there's this one down here, which is just a 500 watt area light. I think the volume scatter is turned off, just kind of like fake bounce lighting right there. But in terms of just lighting, it's very simple, right? The spotlight is shining through, however, this plane right here, which is casting a couple of extra shadows. It's just a plane with apparently nothing on it. I thought there was something on here, but apparently there's actually nothing even on here. I meant to put noise on this, but I forgot to, I guess. So there's just a random blocker there doing that. And then there's this, really messy roof frame thing on top. Just a random object that you can't even see directly, but you're seeing the shadow of it. And that's making it feel kind of like, there's some sort of stuff above, some sort of roof. And just, it creates much more interesting shadows if you have something like that in there. But the actual lighting is very simple, right? It's just a bright spotlight with kind of like a greenish tinge color, 3 million watts, and slightly soft. So the radius is at 2.2, so fairly large light source, soft light. And then like a fairly low spot size, right? Just shining only on what it needs to. And that's an extremely simple setup, but effective, And it's not, was it easy to get this? No, I had to experiment a lot and like try out a bunch of different setups, but in the end it was simple. So if you just spend more time on a minimal amount of lights, even just spend more time on getting one single light to look good, instead of trying to balance like 50 different lights all at once, and trying to do some crazy complex lighting setup, it often works out a lot better if you just simplify and then refine that, and then only make it more complex if it really needs to be. By the way, if you want the most help from me possible on making these kinds of renders, go and check out the new Cyber Environments course. Basically what this is it'll teach you how to make these 4 renders completely from scratch right here. And then also comes with a bunch of other sections on theory and composition and how to make the image actually look good at a very deep level. And also comes with a bunch of asset packs. So Basically, the point of this thing is to reduce the friction and pain as much as possible. And one great way to do that is just give you a bunch of cyberpunk models and industrial models and stuff, also like people and buildings and stuff, so that it's as easy as possible for you to get, start making environments like this. It'll also teach you how to make this stuff as well, so you don't have to just rely on it entirely. But yeah, basically when I started out, I struggled hard with these like urban kind of renders, and they always just kind of look like Roblox, like everything's super just blocky and bad. So if you want everything that I've ever learned about making these better, this is for you. So go and check that out if you are interested in these kinds of like cyber or urban renders. There's a link below, by the way, if you want to check it out. So anyways, back to the video. Okay, so for number 3, the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about what you can do to make better environments straight away is try and tell a story with your environment. So before you click off the video, because you're annoyed of hearing that actually used to bother me when people would tell me that in a video, like, oh, try and tell a story with it, because I just didn't understand what that meant, and it just sounds annoying. So I get it, but here's what I think it means. Let me just try and make this very simple and clear. To me, a good story in a artwork is not like about telling the story of some character's life or something. It's not about good characters. It's not about just leaving some props on the ground so that it hints at some ancient civilization or something. What a good story is, in my opinion, is very simple. It's just, can you create a sense of mystery around something? Can you create a sense of intrigue so that when people see it, they want to learn more? They want to kind of fill in the missing piece. So for example, in this artwork right here, I want to make it clear that you don't want to confuse people by having them look at the picture and then not understand anything at all. So you want to try and make the actual stuff in the image clear to see. So the actual models and texture should be good. The lighting should be on point. You should try and refine everything so that when people look at it, they know roughly what they're looking at, but they might not know why this thing exists. So for example, in this one, I think it's quite clear when you see it. You're looking at something that is clear to see, but you don't know why it's here, right? So the story is kind of what your mind fills in, or what you might wonder about, like, why is this giant statue of this giant dude here? Like, what is that, right? So you know what it is as soon as you see it. It's like obviously something that is clearly a human shape, and is clearly giant, and is clearly in this like sanctuary forest area type of thing. But you don't know why it's there. You don't know who made it, and you don't know what this person is doing here. It kind of looks like they're discovering it because they're in like modern clothing with a backpack. It's clearly been there for a long time. It hints at history, but you don't know exactly, the who, what, where, why, when. Like, you don't know who built it, why it's there, how long it's been there, whatever, right? So maybe I'm wrong about this. I haven't really heard anyone describe it that way. So there's a chance that I'm completely off on what a good story means. But to me, that's what it always seems like, is a good story is just leaving some gaps so that people become interested in the meaning behind it, and you don't reveal all the meaning straight away. If you can do that, basically what's going to happen is people are going to look at your artwork and actually look at it instead of just scrolling past it. So that's actually quite a powerful technique to make better renders, because it makes people interested in it. If you can make people interested in your work, that's a very good thing, and people will actually look at it for longer. It adds some sort of meaning to it as well. It makes it feel more special. So it's kind of a airy-fairy topic. I don't really love bringing this up as like in a video, like how to make your renders better instantly, but it is actually a really powerful technique to make your renders literally better. It's just, can you add some sort of mystery, even if it's not as extreme as this, just something that makes people wonder a little bit. I think it's a very powerful way to just get people literally more engaged with the image and make it more cool and interesting to look at. One thing I really like doing in my artwork is purposefully leaving the meaning up to the viewer. So honestly, a lot of the time I don't have a direct inspiration for like the story of the image. I just kind of do what feels right, and then leave it open to interpretation. I very intentionally will leave it very much open to interpretation as to like the meaning or symbolism behind it. But if you can do that, I think it makes it a lot more interesting, and different people will come to different conclusions as to what this image is about. People will write in the comments all the time that this represents something, some specific thing to them, and it's like, I never thought of that, but okay, it works for you, you know, and that's totally fine. Like, it's the meaning that it has for me might be totally different, and sometimes there is no meaning. A lot of the time, it's like I don't know what it means at all. So I guess if I just try and point out some specific ways that's happening here, okay, look, right. So like I said, this person is in modern clothing in a backpack, so they're clearly in like a modern time, discovering something that is clearly ancient. So that makes you wonder, okay, if it's ancient, who made it and for what purpose, right? There's also these giant shackles around this dude's arms with ginormous chains leading off somewhere. That also makes you wonder, like, what is, like, is this a statue that was built? Was this an actual living being that was like trapped here? If it is a statue, what does it represent? Like, why would they make this? Why is there water coming out the front? Like, why is there a temple on top? It kind of looks like it's some place of peace, but then it's also not peaceful because of this. Like, there's all these different questions that I've kind of thrown in here by adding certain objects, and it's a fun thing to do, like just to try and pose questions to the viewer and then not answer them. You know, that's a really just easy technique to just add more interest to the image. So this is something that I haven't fully figured out that clearly. So I'm still kind of new to trying to explain the story. And I could be wrong about this, but this is just what makes the most sense to me at this time right now. Anyways, hopefully that's useful. I think that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. Go and check out the new Cyber Environments course if you're into urban renders. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.